Hello and welcome to the Week 12 Power Hour podcast. We have a very special guest coming on with us today, probably the best stat guy in the industry. His article every week is a must-read for me and one that I spend a good deal of time on, and also it makes me hate myself because of how fantastic it is. One of the best gotten on Twitter was late last year. Someone said, "You are a poor man's version of Rich Hribar," and I gushed about it for days. And now we have the wealthy man, Scott Barrett. Rich Hribar, how are you doing?
Oh, no, man. Listen. Hey, I've seen all the work you're doing this year. It's tremendous. I have no problem riding shotgun with you, man. So, I mean, it's great to get on here with you and John. It's great to chop it up here. You know, you guys are two guys I interact with on Twitter a decent amount. I like a lot of the stuff you guys put out. I like a lot of the thought process you guys go through. So it's going to be fun to actually chop some things up outside 140 characters, you know, with you guys over this slate of games on Week 12.
Oh yeah, no, and this is like it's like the slate after everyone played the bullshit Thanksgiving slate, you know. So now everybody wants to like put their money back into like an actual full slate. And nobody actually wants to do any of the work. This is the best slate of the year. I love this one.
I'm a short slate player, so Thanksgiving was right in my lane.
No, I normally am too, but I just tanked. I just didn't mass entry correctly. Had 50% Eric Ebron.
Why do you think that is, Rich, that you're better at the shorter slates? Do you think just like kind of breaking it down, it's easier to digest, or?
Yeah, I think it's just you have a good chance on short slates to either just lose it. I mean, it's really you can cover the variance on smaller slates if you have a good core players like like last night. Obviously, all the core chalk guys hit. Bet Le'Veon, Zeke, and AB. So I mean, if you just covered your bases with ownership around there, you covered yourself on variance. You had Cousins teams, you had Djax teams. If you're a guy that only wanted to go in on Thanksgiving and set 1 to 10 lineups, you might have never got to Deshaun Jackson on a roster last night. Some of those other guys, you would have definitely had the chalk, but you might not have had the ancillary pieces to go with it that push you up because everyone had those guys anyways. I mean, I think Zeke and Le'Veon were two guys that are sitting at about 70% in games last night. So, I mean, you were just basically, swimming with the field on those guys. So, yeah, I mean, short slates basically are good because you cover as much ground as you can, the short with the buckshot.
And another great thing about having Rich on is you all know why FanDuel and I don't get along. But Rich is primarily a FanDuel guy, so finally all of you who are clamoring for FanDuel takes, we got Rich to kind of even that out. Johnny, you want to just jump right into this?
Hey, let's do it. So the first game I got on my list is Chargers at the Texans. I think this is kind of like a boring game. It's got a decent over-under though, 46. Melvin Gordon's like my guy that I like in this one, and CJ Fedorowicz, your Fedora boy, Scott. Who you guys liking in this one?
Yeah, Melvin Gordon, definitely all over him. I'm always ranting about bell cows. He's like the bell cow king this season. Last game he played in, he got all of the touches and played all but 5 of the running back snaps. Houston's allowing the 12th most rushing yards per U.S. passing yards per game. You on Melvin Gordon at all?
Yeah, Melvin Gordon's basically like a weekly just easy play. You're playing volume. He's a guy that's going to get basically 90% of the backfield touches. Yeah, they actually are favorites this week on the road, which is interesting coming out of that bye. And you look at the play split counts. I mean, rush heaviest teams, it's kind of so-so. I mean, but Houston is giving up a lot of rushing volume, in a sense. So, I mean, you're going to get a bunch of touches from Melvin Gordon. He's basically a guy that you're going to play for volume. I don't know a ton of my builds this week just based on where his pricing lies, and I definitely, because we'll probably get there, but I definitely want to roster David Johnson as much as possible with everyone else. So that running back 2 spot, is basically going to be like a conglomeration of guys that are like from to 6,500 on FanDuel and like down to like 7K, on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Could one of those RB2 spots go to Lamar Miller, who's averaging 4.9 yards per carry over his last 5 games? And then for perspective, Osweiler is averaging 5.3 yards per attempt over his last 5 games.
Yeah, I like him. He's kind of basically, if you think about it from opposites, he's kind of like the poor man's Melvin Gordon. Like he's going against him this week. He's a guy that's really ramped it up here in terms of efficiency. But I mean, the real big like ceiling games still just haven't been there from Lamar Miller. He's not a guy that's he's not a guy that really has had that 20-point upside. Whereas Melvin Gordon's a guy that we know that he's capable of multiple touchdown games. Basically week in and week out. So I mean, Lamar Miller's kind of a guy. He'll probably be like less than 10% in play for me this week.
Yeah. I think Melvin Gordon's like way harder to play on FanDuel. He's like, RB 4 or 5, somewhere like that. He's definitely easier to roster on DraftKings. He's like 7K. He's like well below the main top tier group on DK. And then Lamar Miller, it's just like, I don't know. He had that big game against Oakland on national TV, so I think that's going to like drive up his ownership a little bit. He's just somebody I don't ever play this year, especially like where his price range is. And the Chargers are actually like pretty good. They're like what, top 5, 6, 7 in yards per carry allowed. I'm just not really all that excited about him.
Well, my question is, why doesn't he have that upside? He has 15 carries or more in 8 of 10 games. He has 3 targets or more in 8 of 10 games. He's not scoring touchdowns, but I think Texans defense is really coming around, kind of surprising people, even without J.J. Watt this season. Is it the lack of goal line work?
I think it's the offense.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy.
Yeah.
And then he's a guy Lamar Miller, he's been kind of nicked up, kind of in and out all year. And he's not getting the receiving work that he had last year. I mean, you look at, he's got 3 games of 20 or more receiving yards. He has his last 4 games. He has 6, 7, 0, and 9 receiving yards. I mean, that's not a guy that's going to give you a safe floor if he doesn't score a touchdown or doesn't really get that immense volume. If something was to happen game script wise, he has no heavy receiving yards games. Whereas like Melvin Gordon does, have some receiving, ability in that offense.
Yeah, they're using their short passing option, and the Texans is the your Fedora guy, Scott, and that's who I really like. Like, he's just so involved. He's like Osweiler's go-to guy. And then Lamar is like, he's getting like steady targets. He gets like 3 or 4 a week, but he doesn't have any of those like 6, 7, 8 target weeks where I think Melvin Gordon has that ability if the game script goes the wrong way. But then somebody I think like everyone's not really talking about is Gates. Like the Texans are really good though against the tight end, but I mean the Chargers have a 23.5 point implied total. Gates is cheap on both sites, I believe. I don't know. Are you interested in Gates at all? I'm like never excited about him, but he's in play.
I mean, he's more in play on FanDuel weekly for me than he is on a site like DraftKings. You're just not getting a big bulk of yardage, in between the 20s from Gates and not really stacking a lot of volume. It's an interesting matchup overall because Houston's really good against wide receivers and tight ends and, kind of not good against running backs. So it naturally wants the funnels to Melvin Gordon, especially with them being favorites. And Rivers is a guy that hasn't been a top 12 scoring quarterback, the past 5 weeks. So it's not like there's they're really forcing this issue to make us really excited to get Chargers pass catchers in our lineups anyways.
Yeah, I know. This was such I'm surprised that Vegas had this game open as like a 47-point over under, and then it quickly moved to like Chargers as the favorites. I don't know. I'm not like excited about this game, but I feel like I'm missing out on like a decent total.
What's interesting too is the highest total of the week, that Atlanta-Arizona game, doesn't have like a lot of alluring individual plays either.
Oh, I know. That's going to be a fun one to talk about. You want to talk about that one next? You guys want to just move on to that one?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I do want to mention Fedora tips for CJ Fedorowicz. my guy. He has 7 targets in his last 7 games and at least 5 in all of those 7 games. But what was interesting to me was that's the only time all season Brock Osweiler's been effective targeting anyone. He has a 52.6 passer rating when targeting Hopkins, 80 point something when targeting Will Fuller. Then when targeting CJ Fedorowicz, it's well over the triple digits range. I think it's like 108 point something. So he has been effective doing that. So it makes sense kind of going back to him. And then just a final thought on the Chargers is Phillip Rivers has kind of been performing way better than I ever anticipated with all the pass catchers going down. But I just never feel good about guessing on any of those players outside of Gates, maybe at his price range on a site like FanDuel where touchdowns or something you want to chase. But yeah, we can move on.
Yeah. No, Fedorowicz I think is like who you want to consider for cash games on DraftKings. That's probably where I'm leaning.
Yeah, he's still pretty egregiously priced over there.
Yeah, he's so cheap. And then like never mind, I don't even know what else I was gonna say. All right, let's move on to Cardinals, Falcons. This is the game you want exposure to, but like you don't know who to go to. We got Julio against like non-diabetes, Patrick Peterson. We got Sanu in the slot. You got
let's hear Rich's take on Patrick Peterson versus Julio Jones.
We were talking about it earlier, and like Twitter kind of beat it to the punch. But I was looking at it through the weeks. I put that my article comes out on Wednesday, so I have to kind of find that stuff. But yeah, and I had mentioned that the last time these two guys played, that Julio kind of swirled his penis and Patrick Peterson a little bit. He caught. He went.
Yeah.
He caught all 8 of his targets for 170 yards and a touchdown. And remember that game leading up to it, Patrick Peterson was running his mouth like all week. And we haven't heard anything this week, but yeah, that was definitely he's got his health a lot better, and he's been an elite cornerback. Julio's definitely still not a guy you want to like play in cash, but all it does is show you is like Julio's a guy to get over in any matchup. And we saw him have a really good game against Seattle this year. The problem with Julio is when you have a matchup like this this season, that they're just not going to jam Julio with targets like when it's not available. So like that is like sitting in the back of my mind that you can't really lean on Julio heavily, because if Patrick Peterson is playing well or they're rolling coverage there, they did it against in a great matchup against Green Bay. Green Bay just funneled coverage to him and they just went completely away from him. So like that is always lurking in the back of my mind now with Julio, even when he like a phenomenal matchups. Like I think he's only a tournament play only this week. It will be interesting. So like Atlanta's total feels like super sketchy to me. I don't think that they get there. I would say they wouldn't get there, but I mean, I'm not really sure. I think when you look at Matt Ryan, so he's faced 4 different pass defenses in the top half of passing points allowed per attempt. His highest he finished in a week was QB 11. Any of those weeks, he's the QB 2 on FanDuel. What is he on DraftKings?
Oh man, I don't remember because he's like not on my list of players to use.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a little bit. He's a little bit lower. Yeah, he's QB 5 on FanDuel. So I mean, he's just a guy I can't really touch because, like I said, he's had those matchups and hasn't really performed. Now he's got the Cardinals. They allow the fewest passing points per attempt in the league. They allow the fewest passing yards per drive. They allow the most overall yards per game, the fewest as a defense in the entire NFL, under 300 yards per game. So it seems like Atlanta's going to have a tough time getting to the 27. So I don't really want to latch on to anyone on the Atlanta side, except for I am interested in your guy, Mo Sanu, but I'll let you lay out the argument for him.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing too is like looks like 70% of bets are on the over on this one, and it hasn't moved. So I don't think there's any chance that it's going to go up over the 50.5 is like so high, and it feels like Vegas knows that. But no, Mohamed Sanu is a guy that I'm like super interested in. I might use him in cash games this week on DraftKings.
Does it matter if Tyrann Mathieu plays or not?
No, he's been terrible this year in the slot. He's like
he also played safety last time he came back from an injury.
Yeah, he hasn't really played in the slot all that much, and when he has not been effective. He's been banged up most of the year. He's coming off of an injury. I'm not really all that worried about him. But I think the concern is like if Patrick Peterson is on Julio Jones and they put Matthew on Sanu, then maybe Taylor Gabriel gets loose and then just fucking ruins all of our lineups. But I don't know. And then people want to play Austin Hooper. The Cardinals are like really good against the tight end though, so I'm not really interested in him at all. I think Sanu and Gabriel are guys I'm like Gabriel only in tournaments, and then Sanu is someone I think you can really consider. People aren't going to want to use him, but I'm definitely interested in him for sure. Less on FanDuel. I don't know. I think his touchdown upside's like lower, but I think he's really, really cheap if I remember right.
Yeah, he's 59 over there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of in that no man's land kind of, if you want to run with him. I mean, yeah, I'm mostly looking to the other side of the ball, though. Obviously, David Johnson is going to be in play for everyone. And I'll be curious to see if he is as highly owned, because we had a spot last week where Le'Veon was priced underneath him, is in a great spot. Hopefully, we get a chance where people bypass DJ and just go straight to Ajayi. This week and give us some more, David Johnson love, because we saw him last week kind of crush it in like a matchup that was better on paper, coming in than people realized, but he still, went over 100 yards from scrimmage, 2 touchdowns, kind of had another high ceiling week. You look at his receiving yards the past 4 weeks, he's just under 62 receiving yards per game the past 4 weeks. That's a huge problem for the Falcons. I mean, their linebackers are so poor in pass coverage. I mean, they're allowing 147 total yards per game to running backs. That's the 6th highest. They allow the most receptions and the most receiving yards per game to backfields. So, I mean, it's just a neon sign to, go DJ RB1. I'll definitely have more David Johnson than Ajayi this week. I don't know if most people will, but I definitely will.
Yeah, I think David Johnson's who I really want to play, who I want to jam in, especially like on FanDuel. You can only play 2 running backs, whereas on DraftKings, I think the go-to is going to be the 3 running back build. But David Johnson's like one of those guys that like he could have one of those weeks where if you don't have him, you're just completely fucked. And then, but Fitzgerald is someone who I'm kind of interested in too. That's another area of the field that they're kind of weak. I mean, the Falcons are just weak in the middle of the field, but I think it's probably a good chance that Desmond Trufant shadows Fitzgerald all over the field this week. How do you guys feel about? I'm gonna let Scott talk Fitz. What do you think about Trufant and Fitz, man?
Yeah, I don't think Trufant shadows. I mean, he could shadow. I don't think he shadows for even half of it. Fitzgerald's just been one of the safest wide receiver options in the game. His lowest fantasy total this year was 10.9 points. Bo Jones have both gotten under that at least 3 times this season, the second most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers out of the third and wide receiver injury, but he put together 2 for that. He was listed as DNP, but he said it was not injury related. So I think he is healthy. He's still chasing that the reception records. I think he's an awesome play this week, despite his advanced age.
You playing Michael Floyd, Rich?
I haven't got me fired up for Michael Floyd, but all these non-practices and game time decisions has cooled me out. He was probably going to look to run a lot of routes against Jalen Collins, which would have been really, really fun. Because I got to admit, I'm kind of Palmer this week. Not as a cash game guy, but he's a guy I'm definitely probably going to have some builds around. I mean, the Falcons allow the most pass attempts per game, and opposing passes have completed 68% of their passes against them. That's the 3rd highest rate in the league. They're allowing the most passing points per game in the league. Palmer's a guy you really can't trust. I mean, he's had just one top 15 finish his past 7 games, actually. And he screwed that 49ers matchup either, too. So he's definitely not safe in a great matchup. But he's a guy I definitely want to have some exposure to, I think, this week. I think you can actually just play Palmer and DJ in stacks, given how poor Atlanta is against the pass, and trying to sort out the Arizona receiver situation, what happens after Larry Fitzgerald, because it's been no consistency week to week. 1 week it's J.J. Nelson, 1 week it's John Brown, 1 week it's Michael Floyd. Fitz is kind of like in a gray area for me in pricing, though. I mean, you look at the only time he's really hit big value is his 2 games against the 49ers over his past 8 games. Outside of that, he's really not done a lot, and that's because he isn't finding the end zone. He's not a guy that is really going to crack 100 yards, so he needs that touchdown for you. The targets aren't just enough for get him, and at FanDuel you can't pay like $7,200 for him because he's hit that value just twice in the past 8 weeks. He's a little bit safer floor guy on DraftKings, but I think I probably like a couple receivers more than him, but he'll find some Palmer builds of mine for sure.
Yeah,
I just want to add how bad Carson Palmer has been when targeting the other wide receivers this season. When targeting Michael Floyd, he has a 69.3 passer rating, 54.0, 4.6. When targeting Larry Fitzgerald, he's lost his deep ball this season. It's been a shame to see, but it looks like really the only dependable options he has are David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald, and that's kind of what I think happens in this game. That's about all I have to add.
Yeah, I'm with you on Fitz. I was kind of considering him for DraftKings cash early in the week, and I'm sort of coming off of that. What do you guys think about Tevin Coleman and his game back against the Cardinals since they limit receivers and stuff? I think people are talking about him. I don't know. I don't really like either of the running backs in this spot.
No, I think him coming back just makes both unplayable this week.
Yeah, the matchup is trash too.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the next game. It's a really kind of a shitty game. The Titans and the Bears. Really like the Titans defense. Not really interested in anything else other than maybe DeMarco Murray in tournaments. Anything you guys sticks out for you guys?
Yeah,
I mean, this is seeing that total
ahead.
is gross. The Titans have been, and then seeing that total is this. And the Bears have been actually like a really good home team, but injuries. I mean, like this could be a game where like DeMarco, they have a chance to take their gas off the DeMarco pedal.
Yeah. And then Scott, let's talk Rashard Matthews versus the Chicago secondary. I'm gonna let you take that away.
Chicago's secondary has been taking out wide receiver ones all season. No one's really done anything against them, but I don't think Rashard Matthews is someone who's going to get that shadow coverage with the safety over the top from Tracy Porter and company. I don't like Matthews for the same reason we didn't like him last week, but then he kind of fucked us over by getting 13 targets last week. I'm still not on him, though I don't think the matchup's going to be as bad as it was last week. I'm still kind of on Mariota and DeMarco Murray in one's given the total. Murray monster. Over his last 7 games, he's averaging 265 yards through the air, 19 passing touchdowns through the air, 2 on the ground, only 3 interceptions, and then also like about 30 yards per game on the ground over that stretch. And DeMarco Murray just keeps racking up bell cow games. Last week, Derrick Henry had 0 touches and played only 3 snaps. If DeMarco Murray is getting volume like that, I don't really care about his foot. The one concern is that implied total, just because Vegas has been like insanely accurate with that all season. Every time I've gone against a total that was low, thinking it would go up, I was dead wrong. That's a concern, but at the same time, like not really buying into. I think that the Bears are just a dumpster fire going forward, and yes, they've been better at home, but do we really think they're going to get fans into the stadium actually like cheering them on and being loud? I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of worry when you look at this total, and it makes sense in a way that you can figure that the Bears really aren't going to do anything electric on offense. They're probably going to play things really close to the vest. You're probably going to get a lot of handoffs regardless of the game script for them. So that's a lot of clock. We know the Titans are going to run the ball, so that's a lot of clock. So it really worries me now about Mariota with his price jumping up. I mean, he's the QB2 on DraftKings on the the Sunday through Monday slate, and then he's the QB5 on FanDuel. So it's kind of tough for me to pay premium dollar when I just don't think that the ceiling's going to be there. But he's definitely a guy, like you said, he's the way he's been playing, he can get you 20 points still in a game that only scores 24 points still.
Yeah. The entire team is like really expensive this week. That is a good point too. Delaney's expensive, DeMarco's expensive. Even Rashard Matthews' price has jumped. I know this is a stretch, but any interest at all in Jordan Howard? Last week we were worried that Langford was going to steal targets, but he had 6 targets to Langford's 3 last week, and it outcarried him 17-6. He's been electric this season. He ranks top 3 in yards per carry, yards per carry after contact, and missed tackles per touch this season. Any interest at all in him? You know he's going to get the volume, but it's just tough with the state of the offense.
It was a big issue that he lost a goal line carry to Langford. Like, if they're going to get like one goal line touchdown, it's going to maybe go to somebody else.
I just remember him pointing to the sideline, like he chose to go out.
Yeah, I think he had a long play that got him into the red zone, and then kind of came out and never got back in.
I guess I don't know. I didn't see that. I guess that could be. I don't know. It's just it's hard for me to want a running back who has a possibility of some timeshare concerns with such a low total.
I think if I am somehow trying to talk myself into Jordan Howard, I'm just going to save money and play Jeremy Hill.
Yeah. All right, fair.
I mean, it's kind of a similar setup with no threat of timeshare, not a great matchup. You know, road dog, a guy that you're playing for touchdown, upside.
Yeah, I just don't want Bears.
Let's jump into that game.
You want to move to that game? Okay.
Yeah, from one low total to another.
Yeah. All right, so here's another.
Rex Burkhead isn't a concern for you, Rich?
I mean, somewhat, but dude, we've been doing the Rex Burkhead thing for like 4 years, and like nothing's ever come to fruition for that. I mean, us through Twitter and like us on the fans like could want more touches to Rex Burkhead, but it's never come to fruition. So I mean, they activated Cedric Pearman. Like, would you even be shocked if like Cedric Pearman played over Rex Burkhead? Like, I wouldn't be. I mean, we don't know. Like Burkhead's was one of those guys that we've built up to kind of be bigger than like the Bengals have ever shown. They're willing how they view him, and listen, they know more than us. He's been in there. Been there for 4 years. But you look at this Bengals total, man. This is gross. But I still think there's some opportunity here because Baltimore is really good against the run and neutralizing running backs, and they're really great at eliminating tight ends. So I mean, you've got them being able to eliminate Tyler Eifert, being able to neutralize Jeremy Hill. Now we've lost AJ Green, so we've got a plethora of targets available, even in a low volume game. I mean, Tyler Boyd is sitting at 4K on DraftKings. Last 2 weeks, Cole Beasley got Baltimore last week. The week before, Eli Rogers got him. Smith's going to play. So, I mean, our guy Sharice is going to get on the field some more. So, I mean, Boyd on DK, he's probably going to make a lot of my teams. I feel like he's definitely worth the squeeze there based on target volume. I mean, he had 20% of team targets, last week. I think it's going to basically hold true with them being able to funnel targets away from Eifert naturally by the type of defense the Ravens play, and they can force the ball through the air because it's the run defense they play. So I like Tyler Boyd a little bit on DK.
So I just want to say, so Rex Burkhead's our guy, but you don't speak for me there. I'm a Brian Leonard truther, personally. But yeah, I think that what it comes down to with Boyd is whether or not he moves outside to see Sharice Wright and Tavon Young, who've been so bad. And I don't know that we 100% know that'll be the case. He ran 3% of his routes last season from the slot in college. He really hasn't been moved outside at all this year. I'm not sure you really trust him out wide, which makes me kind of just gravitate to Brandon LaFell because I know he's going to get that workload. Jimmy Smith looks like it's not going to play. So if he's out, that means like a near even split on both sides against Sharice Wright, who we've streamed against all season to fantastic results, and Tavon Young. So across Sharice Wright's 5 starts, he allowed 40 targets, 28 receptions, 400 yards, and 6 touchdowns. opposing passers have a 136.4 passer rating against him. That's third worst in the league. He's simultaneously allowing the most fantasy points per route in coverage and the third most fantasy points per target. That's really difficult to do. He's disastrously bad. Young is no better. He's allowing a 71.2 completion percentage and the 13th most fantasy points per snap. LaFell has a 4-inch height advantage on Wright, a 6-inch height advantage on Young. He led the team in targets last week with AJ Green out. I just think that continues again, and I think LaFell is one of my favorite point per dollar values of the week.
You know what else really sucks on the Ravens is Gerard Powers. Dude, they're all bad, man.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
it doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm like, I think LaFell is less of your PPR option. He's going to be running your downfield type routes. Boyd is definitely your shorter route type player. I don't think it's going to matter against the Ravens, but a lot of people are going to want to play Tyler Eifert, and that's not really who I'm on. I prefer Boyd versus Scott, who likes LaFell. Who do you prefer, Rich?
I mean, I just look at I like Boyd at 4K a lot on DK. Boyd is actually more expensive than LaFell on FanDuel by $500. So I mean, I would definitely rather have LaFell on FanDuel because he already has 40% of the receiving touchdowns in the year already. So I mean, he's definitely got way better odds at scoring you a touchdown. So I mean, I would just make it site exclusive, especially when you talk about cost. I mean, Boyd's $600 cheaper on DK, and LaFell is $500 cheaper on FanDuel.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think LaFell has the higher touchdown projection.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, Boyd would be more of like a stopgap cash game.
Yeah, you can't really. You're not running on the Ravens, so Hill's touchdown projection is really low.
Are you interested in just on Hill at all, like running him out there based on just like the pricing and the chance that Hill's like a guy who theoretically could score multiple touchdowns.
Hill is such an interesting thing. He's like he's so cheap on DraftKings. He's like 3,900.
900, yeah.
Do you know Mike Clay's Tammy index? You ever hear that, Rich?
Yeah.
So I took that over for PFF since he left, and so I have to rank the running backs and what would happen if there were a Jeremy Hill injury for Gio Bernard or if there was a Gio Bernard injury for Jeremy Hill. And I'm constantly ranking that as Jeremy Hill would be a must-start RB1. I think he gets the targets. I think he gets a bunch of carries. I know in your worksheet article you talked about him having a low, he's been under 4.0 yards per carry a lot throughout the past 2 seasons. But he's also leading running backs and touchdowns and goal line conversion rate. He's also, I think, top 5 in yards per carry this season, albeit a lot of it was on a few big long runs. I've been waiting for this, and it's finally here. But he's facing the best defense against running backs, which makes it difficult. But I still think he's completely in play, especially at the price, especially because we don't think that Rex Burkhead's gonna seriously eat into targets. I think he's a great contrarian play. I don't think he's going to be high owned.
Yeah.
I mean, we're losing Sky.
Dude, they got shredded by the Jets on the ground a couple weeks ago. So I mean, it's not like it's a bulletproof matchup. I mean, you look at the Ravens; they're really great against running backs in the air and great against the run. But let's see, they played the Browns twice. They played the Jaguars. They played the Raiders. They played the Redskins. They played the Giants. Those teams are really built on running the football.
Yeah.
So I mean, you look at the teams. So it's not a bulletproof match. I don't think it's as that Jeremy Hill can't produce as you would think just on the surface.
The real question is what can the Bengals do without AJ Green? I mean, how
already as an offense?
Yeah, I mean, how successful will they be overall?
He's probably not a guy I'm going to force in. There'd be a number of weeks when we would have this injury and we would immediately say, we just got to play him at this price, 5,900, 3,900. We're going to take our 20 touches and just let the chips fall. This week doesn't really set up like that because the way the running back position lays out and the way the receiver position is, there's not a lot of top dollar receivers that you have to wedge into lineups. So, I mean, you don't really have to reach for the value that we know is going to exist regardless of how well the Bengals perform. So, yeah, he's probably going to be a guy that I just very much just dabble in, in some tournaments.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm pretty much with you. Agree on Boyd on DK, LaFell on FanDuel. Steve Smith, I love. I love Steve Smith in this spot.
Mm-hmm.
They move him all over the mat. They move him all over the formation. Every week, everyone says, I don't want to play Steve Smith because he's old. And then I play him. I've really liked in the on DK when you can play, you play all the multiple slates and you play the early slate and you get to play Steve Smith and no one else plays him and then he does well. What do you guys think about Smith? I love him.
Did we lose Scott? Is he still here? Oh, he's there.
Oh, hey guys. Yeah, sorry. Rich, why don't you take this?
Oh, I mean, look at this Steve Smith's performance, man. I mean, just look at everything he's done. He consistently has gotten better throughout the season prior to his injury, and since he's gotten back, he's consistently gotten better since he's returned. Progressively throughout all his games. Kudos to Steve Smith. I mean, double Achilles rupture, 38 years old. I mean, I've always been a guy that has kind of laughed at the narratives surrounding Steve Smith, just because of how animated he is, the whole thought process. But I mean, hey, props to Steve Smith this year because it's legit. 38 years old, doing what he's done off that injury is super legit. So I mean, you definitely want to keep playing him. He's got a great floor. He's FanDuel just does never want to up Steve Smith's price. I played him last week a ton. This week I'll probably own a good amount of him. They just, for some reason, they just do not want to move. And he just continues to be a good value over there.
Yeah, so I love Steve Smith as well. Johnny has a fetish for old wide receivers in the slot only. And I agree with that take. Those guys consistently pan out. Yeah, I just touted Larry Fitzgerald a few moments earlier. The only thing I want to add is I don't think Mike Wallace is a terrible play either. Since Steve Smith returned, Smith is only out targeting him by 4 and has one more touchdown, but Mike Wallace has 258 total yards to Steve Smith's 206. Both those guys have kind of made a nice wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 combo, and really none of the other wide receivers are involved. And every now and then a Baltimore, maybe Dennis Pitta will get his targets, but he's not getting touchdowns. So I think both those guys are kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Wallace is a lot cheaper on DK and offers a higher ceiling, so he's a fun little look.
I just won't play Wallace. I'm not gonna chase that 99-yard whatever bullshit screen pass he fucking caught, asshole.
Dude, on Sunday he's gonna get blanked, and you're gonna be like, "Where's Wallace? Where's Wallace, string?"
I'm not gonna do it.
Johnny lives in Baltimore and he's never seen The Wire. Fuck him.
I have seen The Wire. I just haven't watched it all because it's so dated, man. All right,
it is fun when you watch The Wire and see that technology gap. They're not using cell phones at the beginning of the show. It is fun to watch that.
It is.
Wait a second.
It's so tough. It's so tough. All right. So let's move to a game.
Can we do sponsorships?
We don't have any anymore, dude. We stopped.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Sal Steffanile, 2QBs.com. Great site, has amazing writers that we're all friends with. It's free. It's really good. I'm always ranting about how Superflex leagues are the wave of the future, and I really believe that. And they're heading the wave with the great writers. I can't recommend them enough. Also, Sal sent me a Matt Jones jersey earlier in the week, and I don't know how to repay him back, so he's sponsoring today, whether or not he's aware of it. By Rich Hribar's The Worksheet, probably my favorite fantasy football article out every single week, except for whatever Pat Thorman and Evan Silver write as well. It's like a nice tie between those guys. Also sponsored by Majorska, Camel cigarettes, and Natty Light, and Taco Bell gift cards. Taco Bell gift cards next.
Fair enough. All right, so I'm gonna segue into a game that has another running back who I think might be a slightly better play than Jeremy Hill, which is kind of it's close though. So the Jags at the Bills. It sounds like Yeldon's not going to play. Decent over under. Sounds like we got an Ivory week. What do you guys think about Ivory? Right?
Dude, I like it. I'm always ranting about bell cow games. What have we seen when Chris Ivory was out earlier in the season? TJ Yeldon was racking up the bell cow games. Unfortunately, he sucks and didn't do anything with them. But we want to hope Chris Ivory is at least a little bit better. I'm kind of on this. Rich, what do you think?
I don't hate it. I mean, especially given the price and volume. I mean, we've seen this from the Jags before. Like, they could theoretically probably run like less than 15 rush plays in this game. I mean, being huge road dogs, they skew very pass heavy because they're not in any games usually. It was nice though seeing Ivory last week. Set career highs and receptions and receiving yards. The thing is, they were all checkdowns. None of them were like designed actual pass plays to him. So I mean, it's hard to really stack those as being something that's going to be consistent. I mean, it'd be nice if we do get them. I mean, Yeldon was a guy that caught a lot of balls too. I do like him. I'm actually more interested in the running back on the other side of this thing. I think LaShawn McCoy is like a great tournament guy this week, especially with the Q tag all week. I mean, you look at the play splits. Buffalo being huge home favorites. They skew extremely run heavy. You give them a bunch of game script. I mean, this is a game for them to rush upwards of 40 times. Mike Gillislee has a hamstring injury. Not even go. I don't think McCoy is a guy that's really going to have a ton of ownership on either site. I mean, there's the thumb and everyone paying up, on guys above him. But there's a real good chance here that, you're looking at close to 30 touches for LaShawn McCoy in a great spot.
Yeah, dude, this is an interesting one because like the Bills should theoretically smash the Jags, and no one wants to play McCoy because he like burned them last week. So I think the McCoy Bills D stack is like GOAT this week in tournaments.
I think it's a great argument, Rich. Just wanted to say, all in on or with you on McCoy.
And the Jags play better pass D than they do run D. So agree there.
Yeah, and the Bills have just absolutely carved at home in the run game. I mean, they average 194 rushing yards per game at home. That's tops in the NFL. Overall, 46% of their offensive yardage comes from rushing. They're the only team in the league that's over 40% in that regard. And they're scoring a lot of points at home. So, I mean, I think it's a real good spot, where McCoy is a guy that doesn't have a lot of heavy ownership and has as good as a ceiling as the other guys we're going to play over him in cash games. Probably won't play him a lot in cash, but I think he's a great tournament option this week.
Yeah, the main concern is like, can he catch the ball? That's really why it.
It's a weird thing that they were like tweeting during the game that like he was okay and like he was going to play the next week, but he wasn't going to play in that game.
Yeah, Adam Levitan has been like legit tilting this whole like McCoy not coming back in the game for like 10 days.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. That's just the concern. You never know how someone's going to catch the ball coming off of like a finger surgery. So, if he's going to drop passes, he's not going to be able to catch the ball, then that really hurts him. That's why I would play him in cash over Jay Ajayi if I knew that he didn't have like a fucked up finger thing. But the finger thing is an issue for me. I mean, I played McCoy in cash last week, which hurt me, but I still think he's underpriced for the workload. So I think he's I love him in tournaments. I'm going to be way overweight in tournaments, but you just don't. I mean, you don't know how effective he'll be in the passing game.
That's a good argument too. We saw that limiting Rashad Jennings earlier in the season. What about Tyrod Taylor and Sammy Watkins?
Is anyone
I don't know. I think he's. Yeah, I think he's. We can't know whether or not he's going to be decoy mode or play limited snaps. Otherwise, I'd definitely be all over that. What do you think, Rich? I know you don't take injured guys coming off of injury too much, but
yeah, it's I don't typically like to, and that's more of like a cash game or like reliance type argument. Expecting a Sammy Watkins like game, I think is probably in like the lower end of probability, and replace that with whoever else is coming off of multi-week injuries. That's how I treat it. You don't know the snap situation these guys play, the conditioning. We've already heard Sammy Watkins conditioning already come up, practice. But for coaches as well. So you don't know. But you look at Watkins last year. He came off of a multi-week injury and absolutely shredded the Dolphins. I think he caught all of his targets, like 140 yards and a touchdown. So you look at his pricing on both sites. He's a guy that has a theoretical 20-point ceiling and higher. Out, it as your boom or bust guy, your 25%er around your core, and live with the variance of a game where he does only play half the snaps or doesn't really hit. Because if you get that 20-point game at 5,700 and 5,000, you're great around your core. Then your core hits, then we're going to the moon.
Yeah, I'm not touching McCoy. Not on Ramsey. Not against the Jags. The Jags are like, they limit the pass. It's like you keep wanting to play people against the Jags passing D, and like they just keep like busting. I'm just not going to play someone who's hurt at the same time.
Yeah, a lot of people would probably know that they were better if they were just a team that didn't face a ton of pass attempts. A team that actually stayed in games. Yeah, because they've been really efficiency wise great against the pass. It's just that they.
Yeah, if they didn't have Bortles, man, it'd be a totally different story. Yeah. You guys want to move on to the next game? 49ers Dolphins. Sure. So I might play Kaepernick in cash games on DraftKings.
Yes.
And I like Jay Ajayi. I think I like Jay Ajayi. I'm not sure I love Jay Ajayi. They're going to be missing 3 offensive linemen. Where are you guys at on Jay Ajayi and this game? And we got to talk Parker and Landry too.
I'm still here for Ajayi. I think my expectations are maybe not, like we've treated a bunch of guys against the 49ers, but I think that there's still a really good shot that he gets 20 to 30 touches, and you got to tie into the fact of the play volume that people are getting against the 49ers weekly. They allow the most possessions per game. The Dolphins are already running the fewest plays in the NFL, so that's a big bonus. We've been playing. We were on Ajayi, for that hot run. And there's no reason in a great matchup where they're going to get extra play volume, even without Pouncey, and the splits without Pouncey aren't great. But they still run on the 49ers still, like the better than Arizona did when they were down linemen. I still think that he's a guy that you just play based on the volume of touches, but maybe that the pricing kind of moves you down a little bit. It's not like the 8,400 and 7,300 are kind of the sticking points. It's like, do I want to really just wedge him in with DJ because I'm on DJ more? So that's where it like really comes down to how much do we double up?
Yeah, the real question on FanDuel is like, do you go David Johnson and like Thomas Rawls, or do you go like Jay Ajayi?
Well,
and
Thomas Rawls is a free square who we'll get to in a little bit.
But what Jay Ajayi's value on FanDuel is like a weird spot because he's the RB2 on FanDuel.
And on DraftKings he's not really catching passes, which is a concern.
Right. But
he is playing at home. Miami's favored by 7.5, the worst run defense in the NFL. Yeah, he's definitely a tricky one this week.
It's not even the worst run defense in the NFL. It's the worst run defense through 10 games since 1987.
This is why we had you on, Rich. Yes.
They've allowed the most rushing yards. They've allowed the most rushing yards through 10 games, in almost 30 years.
Yeah, beyond my lifetime.
Yeah, and you're talking about and Ajayi's a guy that has like a plethora of splash play runs too, so he can have a bunch of negative runs, but by default of the script in this game and the amount of volume increase that they're going to have playing against the 49ers, I mean, he leads the league in percentage of runs that have gone for 10 or more yards, and the 49ers have allowed the most this season. So, I mean, he's a guy that could give you, 8 straight carries of 2 yards or less, but he can hit a 40-yarder. I mean, we saw last week, LeGarrette Blount had 2 40-yard runs called back in that game and still had 120 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Rich, what are the odds that he rushes for 200 yards in this game?
Definitely, like, I would say under 10%. I would say like 10%, maybe under.
All right. So let's say you say
there's a lot of yards.
So you say 7%. Let's say.
So yeah, we'll call it 7.
I don't know. I don't know what you're asking.
If he had all of his offensive linemen, what would you say?
Oh, if he had all of his offensive linemen, like 35%. I mean, the thing about Albert is trash, so I don't care that Albert's a better pass blocker than he's a run blocker, so I don't care. Pouncey's the dude we care about. And we've seen this. We've seen the same thing happen to a number of running games. We saw it happen in Carolina right now with Ryan Khalil and Jonathan Stewart. They have not been able to run the ball the past 3 weeks. The center is your coordinator on the offensive line. I mean, so it's a big deal when your center's out. I mean,
dude, I got blocked.
I
got blocked 2 years ago over telling someone an offensive lineman in the center was important. Like a legitimate like high level person in the fantasy community. But we're gonna step aside.
Did you say it like that though?
I told them they were a fucking idiot. That was probably what did it. But no. So no, Pouncey's like a concern. No, it wasn't Kean Thorman. No. So Ajayi is like I'm gonna play him. I think in DraftKings Cash just because I'm terrified. But I think he's someone you can legitimately not have. You can be underweight on the field in tournaments. I think this week because there are definitely possibilities that he busts. You look last week, David Johnson did not have success running the ball, and that was another offensive line that's like really bad. And then the Niners have been they've been up and down at times. Some games they've showed up. So
the first half they're all right. The second half they're bad.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. It's an interesting spot. It's hard to not use him in DraftKings Cash games. I could see not using him on FanDuel though. If you want to play David Johnson and Thomas Rawls, I could see it. But it's I don't know. It's hard to not use him this week. Are you guys on Parker? I don't want Jarvis Landry at all, like ever again. But I kind of like Parker.
I agree on Landry, and my notes on Parker has 18 targets, 13 receptions, 182 yards, and 1 touchdown over the last 2 weeks. ... No idea. ... Fuck it. Ask Rich. So, Rich, what are we doing with Parker?
Well, I think the problem with Parker, and it's a positive sign that he's involved again, but I think when you look at the past 2 games, the Dolphins have chased points the entire games, both weeks. It kind of makes it hard to really latch onto, is this a real thing or not? We need a game where the Dolphins actually involve him start to go, where it's a game where they don't have to skew, more pass heavy than they had been on that rush heavy run they were on. And it's probably a week where they're not going to have to skew pass heavy. I could theoretically see this game really being a game where he goes back down to seeing just like this could be like a 6-target Devontae Parker game. Like that totally exists. That kind of scares me. I mean, it is nice though when you look at the 49ers, they've given up a lot of touchdowns to like the big receivers. And a couple slot guys have got him, but I mean, they've allowed multiple touchdowns to, Mike Evans, Larry Fitzgerald, the Cowboys guys are both big guys. They got him for multiple touchdowns. The bigger guys have really given the 49ers problems. They lost another guy, Eric Reed, for the season. I mean, it's 49ers defense, man. You can attack them any way you want. And play Tannehill. But, I mean, you could take some swings on the Dolphins guys because just the 49ers are so bad. But, I mean, I worry about pass volume here, though, in general. That's my concern.
Yeah, I agree. Scott, you got anything else?
Yeah, I think that was a really good point by Rich. So Devontae Parker saw 10 targets last week. 9 of those came in the second half. So I think that was a really good point by Rich. Yeah. Next.
All right. So the last 1 o'clock game is
the cap though. Oh, you don't want to lay out the cap in cash?
Oh yeah. I might
yeah,
play,
we got to do that. Great point.
I might play cap and cash on DraftKings. I'm just like, I keep playing him.
So here's what it is. In his last 3 weeks, he has at least 2 touchdowns in each of his last 3 games. And he's also averaging 270 yards per game over the last 3 weeks. But that's only through the air. And then he still has that Konami code goodness with his legs. Rich, or should we left down, right up, AB, and dial in Kaepernick this week?
Yeah, I love him still. I mean, he's been a top 10 scorer each of the past 3 weeks. He's, sitting right now as the QB 12 on the main slate and DraftKings. He's the QB 14 on FanDuel. You can play him on either site. To be honest, if you're really wanting to save money, I mean, the problem with on a site like FanDuel is like Russell Wilson's like right above him in like a prestige spot. We'll probably get to that game. It's like Russell Wilson is like complete free square on FanDuel this week. Yeah, I mean, dude, you just keep playing Kaepernick, man. You just keep playing him. I mean, they're going to run a ton of plays. He's going to do things with his legs. The Dolphins secondary is not a secondary that really is going to shut them down. And in your points, you don't have to watch the games. They're not aesthetic points, but they still count.
Yep.
Agreed.
Love it.
Agreed. All right, next game, Rams Saints. See a lot of people talking about they want to play Todd Gurley. I don't want to play Todd Gurley at all. I think I'm more interested in like the Breeze at home, Cooks at home. Where you guys at?
So 4 weeks ago, 4 or 5 weeks ago, people were talking about Todd Gurley, like he's a contrarian play. Just because he's been so bad, no one's going to be on him. And I'm like, no, screw that. Like, the matchup's not good. He sucks. I hate him. But, like, I was looking at this week as kind of like a potential week to play him. Rams are at home. Saints are allowing the 3rd most fantasy points per game to running backs. He's kind of a lock for 20 carries and 1 target. I mean, he's a contrarian play. Not a lot of people are going to be on him despite the good matchup and the lock for 20 or so carries. I mean, it doesn't feel good. It feels gross, in fact. But I'd probably want like maybe 10 to 15% exposure to Gurley this week. Rich, do you think that's too much?
No, I think that's reasonable. I mean, the thing about Gurley is you hate to see is that he was starting to finally get involved in the passing game, and now it's gone again. It's gone again. He was kind of holding that great PPR floor. Like, we weren't getting the Todd Gurley you drafted and that you were paying for, but like he was still holding like an all right floor due to volume and receptions. And now he's lost those snaps to Benny Cunningham again. So, I mean, that's a worry. His pricing is completely different from both sides too. I mean, he's kind of, I could see talking yourself into him on DraftKings, it's more of a tournament play. Like on FanDuel, he's kind of in the no-fly zone. He's just too expensive there for what you're getting. And yeah, I mean, you look at the Saints; they've been better on defense overall. Recently, I mean, they're only allowing 3 yards per carry to running backs. The past 3 weeks, 3.0 yards per carry to running backs. That's not that hot, against the guy that's probably not rushing for more than 3 yards per carry himself, no matter who he plays against. I mean, we finally had that one run. We kind of been waiting all year for Gurley. It just made no sense. Even as bad as the Rams' offensive line was, we were like, he's getting this much volume. How has he not at least just popped one yet? How has he just not broken one, second level, anything? And he had that, 20-yard touchdown to start the game, and then just completely did nothing the rest of the way. It's like he's just so hard to like really invest in at this point. And him losing those receptions really just makes me not really want to chase here.
Yeah, last season he led the league in percent of yardage from carries that went for 20 or more yards. And this season, last week, that was his first carry of 20 or more yards, and he had like 150, or more. Definitely gross. Maybe that is what does it. Is just the Saints have been better recently, and he did lose the receiving workload to Benny Cunningham. Is there really anything more to say about Breeze than wait, the Saints are home this week, right?
Yeah, man. I want to play Saints D.
My bad. Yeah.
Saints D. I don't want Gurley, man.
And Breeze, yeah. Yeah.
Like the Saints are like defending the run, man, the last couple of weeks. They look like really good. And I don't think Jared Goff can do it.
All right. That might have been a bad take, guys. You might be right. I just had it circled on my calendar like 4 weeks ago. So I was
listen. Every Gurley owner has had this Saints matchup circled. This is the 49ers game. This is the last remaining 49ers game. It's all they're holding on to. It's all they're holding on to.
Wait, the 49ers game is championship week too, right?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll have that. Maybe he'll be so bad by then he'll be like 5K and we could play him.
Yeah,
this is what Gurley owners get, though. He was such a bad draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Yeah, I mean, we can't really. It's not really, to get into the minutia of it, but I mean, it's tough to really count on guys to just transcend situation continuously. Like, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah,
especially when you're not catching. Like David Johnson would be. He'd still be doing it right. He'd still be fantasy relevant at least.
Playing Kenny Britt, man. I'm playing Saints D.
Like every week you play Kenny Britt.
Yeah, it's been good, dude.
Are you still here? Are you still here at the Goff to Britt connection?
He got 7 targets last week. I don't know. I just like. I think if I don't. I mean, I'm not like excited about him, but if I had,
you're so excited about him.
I used to be. All
right. You're not this week. Jared Goff, man. I don't know. Back when it was, I don't know.
I'm not like
Kenny Britt is. He's 7,100 on FanDuel.
Damn, that's gross.
Yeah, dude, he's really. Yeah, that's tough.
That's gross.
I mean, he's really he's cheap on DK. He's 5,400. I mean, you could like. I don't know.
Would you rather play him at 5,400 or just like LaFell?
Yeah.
Is there like a difference there?
The thing is that like on DK, like everyone's gonna play LaFell and Boyd, and like no one's going to play Kenny Britt.
It's true.
So I don't know. The thing about Kenny Britt.
What do you set your weekly script for Kenny Britt at?
Dude, I've been using Kenny Britt. Kenny Britt has been like a 20. I don't know, 15, 20% guy for me since like week 5.
Nice. Yeah, he was good until just the Goff thing that scares me.
I mean, yeah, no, Goff is a big knock because they did not throw down the field, and that's like where Britt excels for sure. But I mean, it's course field. It's course field, You gotta.
Yeah, that's true. My spreadsheet has him at 7,100. That can't be real, right? Like, is he really 7,100?
Yeah, no, you can't play him on FanDuel.
Oh God,
you can't even consider him on FanDuel. That he got the Saints at home boost, I guess. I don't know. That's dumb.
Is this a week you think the Saints guys are going to have high ownership at home though? I don't really think so.
No, I don't think anyone's going to play the Saints all that much either. I think Breeze might have higher ownership. But
I think Breeze and Brady are going to be the 2 best on quarterbacks. I think Cooks is going to be top 5 wide receivers.
It's going to be Derek Carr.
I mean, he'll be in there. Rich, we were talking about like our starts in the industry. I was a baseball guy at Number Fire. That's like what I did for my first 2 years in the industry. But the first fantasy football article I wrote was on something called the backup connection. And it's just that, like, backup quarterbacks, if a backup quarterback comes in and a starter, they're going to throw it to each other a shit ton because, like, he had all those practice.
Oh, we're losing Scott.
That was my argument for what was out. So for someone with Jared Goff, Pharaoh Cooper is gonna destroy. No, definitely not. I'm not on any of the pass catchers on the Rams. I am on Drew Brees a lot. I mean, anytime you can get Cooks at home, that's awesome. But I'm definitely more excited about Michael Thomas than I am about Cooks, I think. And that's just because he still leads the team in targets. He has the more attractive matchup against E.J. Gaines. So Thomas runs 55% of his routes from Drew Brees' left. The Rams are allowing the second most fantasy points per game to wide receivers lined up to the left. And that's all E.J. Gaines, who's allowing the third most fantasy points per route in coverage. 122.3 passer rating when targeted. He's PFF's fourth worst graded cornerback this season. Mike Thomas has a 5-inch height advantage over him. I think he's the lock to get the most targets. Maybe Cooks breaks one deep. That's really what he's been super reliant on throughout his entire career. But Thomas seems like the safest bet for me.
I want Cooper. Or I want Cooks, man.
You do want Pharaoh Cooper?
No, I want Cooks at home.
All right. I want Thomas. Who do you want, Rich?
I want both.
At price?
I'm totally cool with both at price. I'm fine. Neither one has been trouble to put in builds at all, especially just because the reason Cooks is more in play for me this week is because there just aren't a lot of high-priced receivers I want to play. So I'm completely content playing multiple guys from the second tier instead of playing one guy from the top tier.
That's a good point.
I'm with you. I don't know. I
want to play a lot of guys on that tier. Like I like Cooper. I like Cooks. I like Demaryius a lot. Like I like those guys in that area. I like Doug Baldwin on both sides a lot. Those are guys I want to own a lot of.
Baldwin's in a great spot too. Can we just jump to that matchup? The matchup is like so tasty.
You want to jump to Seahawks Bucks?
Yeah.
All right. So
unless it's 4 o'clock, are we done with 1 o'clock?
Yeah, we're done with 1 o'clock. So I just want to play. I want to play all of Seattle, man. Like I don't want any Bucks.
All the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I just want all of Seattle. I don't want none of Tampa Bay. You guys with me?
I think Doug Martin would have been interesting if it wasn't the Seahawks, just because he played on limited snaps last week. And we haven't really seen him given a full workload without Charles Sims. Maybe he gets a receiving workload. Maybe not, but the matchup kind of puts him out of play. Mike Evans versus Richard Sherman, not on him. Though he did see 7 targets and shadow coverage against Patrick Peterson. Cameron Brate, I think, is still always somewhat interesting. He had at least 5 targets and a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games. But he's going to be super touchdown dependent in a week where we don't really think they score too many touchdowns. Although we do have to mention that Seattle's going through a lot of injuries. I think Sheed is out, or Sheed, Earl Thomas, and Bennett are all doubtful or out. So maybe we should bump up Tampa Bay a little bit more at home. I'm all over Thomas Rawls, but anyone else have anything? And Russ Wilson and Doug. Anyone else have anything to add?
Dude, I mean, Sunday through Monday, FanDuel slate, Russell Wilson's the QB 11. I mean, he's fourth.
Wow.
He's fourth.
That's bad.
Fourth in points per drop back the past 3 weeks. He's been a top 5 scorer all 3 of those games. Tampa Bay's allowing 8.1 yards per pass attempt, the second highest in the league. They allow a plethora of splash plays. 17% of the plays, 19% of the completions against the Bucs have gone for 20 or more yards. It's the highest rate in the NFL. I mean, Russell Wilson is I'm ecstatic over his price on FanDuel, and I hope everyone just is so on to Rawls that they forget about this passing game, the surgeons they've had, and that those guys are all great plays as well, because I want to own a lot of Doug Baldwin. I want to own a lot of Russell Wilson. Jimmy Graham plays the wrong position for me to spend money on, but I want to own some of him too.
Yeah. No, I'm playing Russell Wilson in cash on FanDuel. And I've considered him on DraftKings. So, I'm down to 3 quarterbacks on DraftKings. It's down to Russ or Derek Carr or Colin Kaepernick for me on DraftKings. So,
on FanDuel, some of the quarterbacks more expensive than him are Tyrod Taylor, Eli Manning, Rivers. I mean, I want Russ over all of those guys, even on even salary. He's cheaper than all those guys. I mean,
and the thing is, on FanDuel, you can just you can play Russell Wilson and Thomas Rawls, and you can have all the touchdowns against the Bucs. They should blow them out.
So Johnny, we popularized MSD, Must Start Doug. here's what it comes down to for me. If it's yet again, and that's if we think Vernon Hargreaves moves back to the slot, that's where he spent 64% of his routes in coverage over the first 3 weeks of the season. And with Jude Ajayi Barama, didn't pronounce that correctly, so everyone drink at home if you're keeping score. He's suspended, so I do think they move Hargreaves, and he's their slot corner, so I do think they move Hargreaves back to the slot. He's PFF's 5th worst graded cornerback this season. Over the past 4 weeks, he leads all quarterbacks and teams thrown at by 5, receptions allowed by 4, yards allowed by 92. Baldwin runs roughly 75% of his routes from the slot. He's averaging 19.7 PPR points over the last 3 games. Russ Wilson looks amazing and back to his old self, despite not really rushing as much as he used to typically. Johnny, how in are we on Baldwin?
So the thing about Baldwin is, like, everyone looks at his target volume with Russ, and I think that's something that's a little strange to look at with him, because the big thing for him is that, like, when Russell Wilson is mobile, that's when he's at his best. So Baldwin is Russell Wilson's, like, go-to, like, on the comeback, running out of the pocket kind of guy, and that's when he does his most damage. So when Wilson is healthy and mobile, Doug Baldwin is just like, he gets a boost. So he's still not priced as probably what he should be with a mobile Wilson. And I think that's just where he's at.
No, you're right. And the thing about Russell Wilson is people are going to look at his rushing yards and say, oh, he hasn't been that mobile. But if you look at his average time to throw, he really has been far more mobile over the past since the Bills game or whatever than at any other point in the season. Rich, anything else to add on the passing game?
No, I love all those guys. I mean, I want to play them all. I want to play them all in cash. You know, I'm fine playing Russ and Baldwin in cash together, to be honest, too, as well.
And Ross?
No, probably not all 3. I wouldn't do all 3. Like, anytime you start getting like the 3s in cash on stacks, it gets kind of sketchy. But I think that Baldwin's a guy that, and his pricing, he allows you to go up from Rawls. You know, if you're playing Baldwin in cash, you probably are playing when you're playing a guy like Demarius and someone else, at your wide receiver 1-2, and you can go up from Rawls being your RB2. So, I mean, I don't mind stacking those guys in cash, though, at all. Like, that's a connection I'm completely fine having in cash. And Baldwin's guys did some splash plays the last few weeks. He had a 50-yard catch against Buffalo 3 weeks ago. He had a 44-yard catch last week. So, I mean, he's got some big playability, too, as well.
Yeah, so in cash, I don't like to pair my quarterback with the receiver. I'm just like it just makes me too anxious, like having too much invested in like one spot. Though that might be a gap in my play. I really prefer to stack up a quarterback with the running back as like kind of a hedge, hopefully to soak up all the touchdowns. And that's what I think if I played on FanDuel this week, I think that's what I'd do with Thomas Rawls and Russell Wilson. Alex Collins is the only other active running back in the roster. You've all seen my stats on Thomas Rawls. You all know why I love him. And PFF's worst graded run defense this season is Tampa Bay. That against the run, I think he's an awesome play, despite kind of just coming back from injury last week. Johnny, would you go so far as to say Thomas Rawls is a free square?
I think he is on DraftKings, where you can play 3 running backs. I think on FanDuel, though, there's way more consideration. I don't think you have to play him on FanDuel. That's kind of where I'm at. Rich, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of priced in that purgatory range on FanDuel, kind of right in that fringe RB1. So you're paying for something you haven't got yet, which is always kind of sketchy. Anytime you're paying for something you haven't got, you're taking a leap of faith there. I do think the only thing that could be better for him in this spot, though, is just being at home. I mean, you got a team with a high team total, one of the highest team totals of the weekend. They're heavy favorites. He's going to get a ton of touches because Alex Collins is the worst player I've ever seen wearing an NFL uniform.
So fucking bad.
Yes.
And Tampa Bay's allowing the fourth most total yards to opposing backfield. So, I mean, it really couldn't be set up better. I think you just take all the pros and you add those up and you say you could take that leap of faith based on those. But, I mean, you still are taking a leap of faith on FanDuel based on the pricing. But he's a guy I will have, though, just based on the spot and the touches. I mean.
So then we look at someone who Pat Thorman thinks is a better play. We're going to move on to the next game. Giants at Browns. Thorman and a lot of people are talking in chat right now that Jennings is a better play on draft.
No way.
Than Rawls.
Nope.
No? Rich, what do you think?
It's tough, man, because I mean what is real? What's the real reception for Rawls? It still could be 0. We don't know. Jennings is still kind of a good pass catcher, and they still have been involved in the past 2 weeks. That's tough. I'm more interested in Jennings just based on the spot he's in and based on what we know against the Browns. I mean, the Browns, you look at as a team, they've allowed 24 or more points in 12 consecutive games. It's the longest streak in the NFL since 1963. Opposing teams have rushed the ball 54% of the time against them in the second half. That's the second highest in the NFL. And teams are rushing against them 64% of their fourth quarter plays. That's the highest rate in the NFL. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity here for Jennings to be good. Jennings played his most snaps that he played in since 2014 last week. Highest percentage of snaps. So, I mean, I like Jennings a lot. I mean, unfortunately, it's early in the week. I thought Jennings would be a guy that I would just gravitate towards in cash, and it just hasn't worked out that way. I just haven't really. I've been paying up for running backs above him, but I do like Jennings a lot.
The worst part is I always love these weeks when you have Jennings on the early slate and you have Rawls on the late slate, and then I can split the two slates and I can have both of them and not have to worry about it. But then we're stuck with them both being on the late slate, and I think Rawls is better.
That's a one. Is that a 4:00 game in Cleveland?
Is it? Am I? Did I write this down wrong?
Giants are 1:00.
Okay, then I totally wrote this down wrong. All right, take all of that back. So then you can do that. You can do that, actually. I'm just I'm losing it, man. I'm running out of steam, you know? So you can load up on Rashad Jennings in your 1:00 games, and then you can load up on Rawls in your 4:00 games and split your slates, and then you don't have to worry about having to roster, one or the other.
All right, so here's my thing with Rashad Jennings. Last week, we were a week early, I think, compared to everyone else on Rashad Jennings' breakout, the last 4 weeks of the season where he was kind of given a workhorse role that he hadn't had the entire season. This week, I think it's still too early to come to that conclusion. So 3 weeks ago, he had 11 carries and 3 targets. 3 weeks ago, Paul Perkins had 11 carries and 3 targets. 2 weeks ago, Jennings had 15 carries, 6 targets. Paul Perkins had 9 carries, 3 targets. And then last week was really the first week where Jennings had that workhorse role, where he had 21 carries, 6 targets. Perkins only had 4 carries, 2 targets. Perkins still has looked really good to me. I just think it's too early to come to that conclusion where, Jennings is the guy. You got to play him. He's a must play. I want to see another week out of it. I've lived through the Giants running back by committee nightmare where Andre Williams is getting his 12 carries per game. Fuck that. I want no part of that. If he does it again next week, all right. This week it's too early given projected ownership, which I think from every podcast, every tweet I'm seeing is going to be obscenely high this week, especially in tournaments. I think Rawls is the better play overall. In tournaments, I could think of a bunch of plays I like more than Jennings at ownership.
Reeves, where are you at on Jennings, man? I like Jennings.
No.
I like Jennings.
he was a guy I thought coming into the week, when you first look at that pricing on Sunday night, that I thought I would oh yeah, I'm going to be all over Jennings this week. And as the week has gone on, I've progressively owned less of Jennings. Just the way the builds have gone, and just the way that it's shaped up. I still like him, and I like the spot as I laid out. And the thing about Jennings, like Scott said, the thing is he's still getting those salt in the wound carries. He's the guy getting those kill the clock carries. Perkins and Jennings very well may have the similar touches through the first half, but it might be Jennings in the second half that really gets those milk away carries, that he's gotten the past 2 weeks, over Paul Perkins. But I mean, it's still tough to play that way. It's tough to just go in all in and assume game script on a game and just say, I'm going to play Jennings. He's going to get a bunch of fourth quarter carries. That's just all really hard to do. But yeah, he's a guy that I like a lot coming in, and I've kind of cooled on, but I'm still into for a tournament. He's going to be a guy that I probably have 25 to 35% in tournament play.
Agree on tournaments. As for the pass catchers, Beckham, I'm gonna have probably close to none of.
I love Beckham
this week. I think that he's he's a really good play. I just don't think they're gonna have to throw much against the Browns. Probably prefer going down to Will Tye, and then a lot of people are on McCown and Corey Coleman. I don't want any Corey Coleman or any of the Browns, I don't think.
Yeah, we like Will Tye, right? On DK?
Yeah.
Yeah. So cheap. So cheap.
Yeah, I'm there for Will Tye affection.
Will Tye, the touchdown guy. In on him. Not in on any of the Browns. I'm a Giants homer, as you can tell by my Jason Sehorn jersey. But, I think that defense is legit, especially over the past few weeks. I like the Giants' defense a lot. I still like Odell Beckham. I think you're right on game script, but at the same time, I could see him having a big day. Some beat writer came out earlier today and said this is going to be Odell Beckham's toughest test of the season, which makes no sense to me. Yeah. I think it was Jordan Renan, who I typically like. Either retweeted it from a Cleveland guy or he posted himself. But that makes no sense to me. Joe Hayden's going to shadow. Hayden is PFF's fourth worst graded cornerback over the last 4 weeks. That's over 104 qualifying cornerbacks. Over that span, he's seen 27 targets, allowed 18 receptions, 212 yards, and a touchdown. Hayden ranks bottom 25 in both fantasy points per target and fantasy points per snap and coverage. Beckham kind of let everyone down last week, but me and Johnny were smart. We faded him because of how stout Chicago has been against wide receiver ones all year. But I think he kind of rebounds nicely, and I think we're going to get him at a low ownership, which has me a little excited. Rich, I know you like the wide receiver 2 range more. Is there any merit in paying up for Odell Beckham this week? He probably has the highest ceiling of any wide receiver.
Guy I'm going to have a ton of in cash games, but I'll definitely have exposure to. The thing that's interesting about Hayden being terrible, though, is games from wide receiver ones against the Browns, to latch on to.
AJ Green?
We've got the AJ Green game.
Jarvis Landry, Jordan Matthews, but that was slot.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, those are slot. I mean,
man.
that's where I was headed. Is they are a team that gets roasted by slot dudes. The Browns get absolutely destroyed by slot guys. And not that Sterling Shepard's a guy you want to have a cash game exposure to, but he scored in 3 straight games. They've allowed big games now to Anunwa was the wide receiver 15 in PPR. Cole Beasley was the wide receiver 15 in PPR. Kendall Wright was the wide receiver 6 in PPR. Wide receiver 8 in PPR. I mean, Jordan Matthews was the wide receiver 6 in PPR. This is a team that's had trouble with interior options. And you faced a lot of good wide receiver ones that have had okay games, but haven't really had great fantasy games. I mean, between Des Bryant, Antonio Brown, Brandon Marshall, really all we got is the AJ Green game to latch on to. So me to go all in a game where Odell Beckham's probably only going to see probably closer to 8 targets than he will 14, just based on the game script. But I mean, we're always going to own a little bit of Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, Odell Beckham can turn 3 targets into 150 yards.
Yeah. I mean, he can always house 3 targets. He's just not a guy. I don't expect to see him to see. He's the wide receiver 1 price, I think, on both sites. Just not, I'm not excited about him to see that kind of volume. I'd rather play Cooper, I think.
I wish we would have had AB on the main slate just for to see how builds would have turned out on this main slate.
Yeah,
because I think that it's just
over him.
Because it's just not really set up to pay for any of these guys at the top. I mean, Evans has kind of a tough matchup. We really didn't touch on it. We talked about it, but like he's going to get his targets. But like Richard Sherman, he's the type of receiver like Richard Sherman plays well against typically.
Yeah,
a longer guy that runs vertical routes. Like Sherman has got great at defending that stuff. So I mean, and Julio's got Pat Pete, like we said. Odell Beckham might not have volume. AJ Green's now off the board. Jordy's on Monday night. It's really the wide receiver slate is open this week.
Yep, agree with you. There's really no one to pay up for.
Also, we've said this before, but OBJ, I don't think is like ever really a cash game lock. It all comes down to him burning one deep. The volume's not there. I think if you're going to play him, it's in GPPs, but I still do think he has the highest upside of any wide receiver. But I know Johnny's going to argue for Cooper.
Yeah, let's do it.
You want to make that argument now?
Yeah. So let's move into Panthers Raiders. I love Carr this week. I love Cooper. People want to talk up the Panthers as having like an upgraded pass defense, but the real reason that they have an upgraded pass defense is because their defensive line has been playing better lately. I think they have 30 sacks or so in the season, so they're up there in sacks. But the Raiders don't give up sacks, so they don't allow pressure on the quarterback. And where the Panthers
out.
Yeah, where the Panthers are really weak is in the secondary. They can't defend receivers in the back end, and that's where Carr should pick them apart. And Cooper should avoid Bradbury the most, who's their better corner. I think Cooper and Carr should have tons of success this week. Where are you guys at?
Yeah, no, you laid it out perfectly there. I think it really comes down to that the Carolina is completely pass rush dependent as a defense, and Oakland doesn't allow any sacks. So it makes me really want to own a lot of the Raiders passing game. And we kind of hinted at like Derek Carr's price on DK is really attractive. It's really tough to get away from him when you keep stumbling into lineups over there. He keeps finding his way into the fold there. I think he's probably going to be the highest owned, like based on like popular guys. For people I value their analysis, that they're leaning towards Carr as DK and cash, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think Carr is going to be the most highly owned quarterback on DraftKings. I think FanDuel will be a little different. I think there's
he's more expensive than Russ, like I said, on FanDuel, so it makes it a little different.
Yeah, I think Cam and Russ might be close in ownership to him on FanDuel.
Are you buying any Cam this week?
Dude, I like Cam. I like the idea of the shootout, but Cam he's been like kind of bad this year. It's like tough to trust him. But I mean, this is like the spot where this is like a game that should shoot out more than people are really expecting. People are focusing on that Falcons Cardinals game, but I think this is a game that has a better chance of scoring more points than that game.
Yeah, I typically like Cam against defenses that don't rush the passer, but for some reason that defenses that can't rush the passer all of a sudden can against Carolina. And Khalil's out, Orr's out, so it kind of makes me sketchy. Cam is always been a dude that just is terrible under pressure, and I mean, dude, he completed 40% of his passes against the Saints. It's really hard to.
He's been bad.
But
this year. He's been a guy.
Well, no, he's been exactly Cam Newton's been exactly the player he was for the entire crux of his career. It's just everyone had recency bias on 8 games sample size and thought that that's what they're buying. I mean, Cam Newton is lockstep in, like with his career peripherals, where he was before those last 8 games of 2015.
Yeah, this is with the Raiders playing better. I don't know. It's a tough spot to buy. I haven't bought Cam the last couple of weeks. Everybody wants to be in on Cam. He's just a tough sell at his price, and he's not like on DraftKings. He's not that expensive. He's someone you can, if you want to game stack this game, he's definitely someone you can play. But it's a tough sell, like in the top 10 QB price range on both sides. Scott,
you like him, Scott? You like him?
Yeah, I'm not on Cam. Not really on any of those guys. Though I think Oakland's a little worse against tight ends than they are against wide receivers. I think they're giving up the 9th most fantasy points per game to tight ends. But yeah, I like Carr a lot. I like Crabtree and Cooper both. Just are a funnel defense. Carolina, that is, they're allowing the 3rd most yards per carry of any defense and have been really beat up against the pass. So yeah, I like all those plays.
Yeah, they're like the funnel. I think this is definitely a spot for Olsen to bounce back if you want to pay up for tight end. You like Olsen at all, Rich?
Yeah, I like him a little bit. I'm like more often than not a guy that doesn't pay for tight end. So on either side. Yeah, so it's just the way it goes.
Yeah, I don't pay for tight ends either.
He plays the wrong position.
True. Next game, Scott?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Patriots, Jets. Off the Patriots running game. I'm in on the entire passing game. I think Fitzpatrick's kind of interesting. Where are you guys at? We going back to Bennett?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a game where you just, you stuck it up and you put that last week behind you and you played 96% of the snaps, ran 34 outs. Dude had 1 target. I mean, it was what it was. He was the odd man out. I mean, I still want to own him. I think when you look at the history, too, of the way Bill Belichick has attacked the Jets defense, the tight end has been way more involved than a guy like Julian Edelman. I mean, I can't say that will for sure happen, but I think when you look at the history, Gronk's the guy that had he's had immense target totals against the Jets, while Edelman really hasn't, in the slot. And they've skewed extremely pass heavy against the Jets. They've thrown 71% of the time over the past 2 years against the Jets. LeGarrette Blount only played 12% of snaps in his only game against the Jets last year. I think that was the game the Patriots only ran 9 times. They just completely said, screw it, we're not even going to try to run. I mean, you look at DVOA, they're 30th. The Jets are 30th against the pass and 2nd against the run. I mean, we don't have to, there's no level of brilliance here to what we think the Patriots will do. They should throw, and they should throw a lot more. So I definitely want to own Bennett. Edelman's kind of interesting because he's getting a ridiculous amount of targets, and he still kind of sucks with them all.
So bad.
He's tough to play, but you're paying for targets when you play him. I mean, he turned 17 targets against the 49ers into 77 yards. I was on him. I have a lot of exposure to him, and I was happy with the results because based on price. But it's he could have had a 30-point game, and 17 targets. Imagine if you would have gave 17 targets to half the other players in the NFL, what they could do with 17 targets.
But imagine that volume against Darrelle Revis.
Dude, I just Dude, I ended up on Edelman in cash last minute, and I was I hated myself for it.
You fought me on him all week.
Deep down in my core, I was Edelman is just he has no ceiling. This is I fucking hate Edelman. He's not going to do anything with this stuff, and he didn't. Man, he didn't do anything with. This is such a gross spot. Edelman is a really good tournament fade. He has been really.
Yeah,
ineffective this year. He looks like he's not running well with the foot or whatever it is. If Gronk plays, I'm pulling my Edelman tournament exposure for sure. If Gronk is out, Edelman is for me back in cash games just because he probably gets 12 plus targets, I guess, in this spot. But I just I don't want to play him though. I'm not happy about it. I think I don't know, man. It's just he's been really bad this year. I'd rather play Baldwin. I don't know. Scott, are you excited about Edelman? I'm mad at him.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of fought you on that last. We had a big debate on Edelman, and I was like, "Oh, the volume's there," and you're like, "Nah, he sucks. It doesn't matter." And we were both kind of right, so I kind of just walked away from that, grossed out. The one thing about Martellus Bennett is I don't think he's a cash play, even though I would have had him in cash last week. He did run a bunch of routes, but his 9 pass blocking snaps was also the 4th most. The only players with more pass blocking snaps were Deion Sims, Anthony Fasano, and Jermaine Gresham. So I do see that the routes run number being thrown around, but that does have to do with kind of playing the 49ers, I think, and just their insane pace of play. But I do want to desperately go back to him in tournaments. I think that was kind of a fluke.
Agreed.
Do like him. Tom Brady has thrown more passes, touchdown passes to tight ends than any other quarterback over the past at least 10 seasons. Dion Lewis, I think, is kind of interesting that I'm not hearing anyone talk about. Any of you guys on him?
No.
Not until I see someone they both played, they both kind of split. I think it was 27% to 31% between him and White. So, I mean, I know it's his first game back, but it was kind of – we need more clarity to really latch on to that. And Dion Lewis is a guy that doesn't get the ball near the paint. So it's really hard to take a guy that has limited snaps and low probability of a touchdown and really run with it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think the only guy I'm considering is if Chris Hogan doesn't play again, I want Malcolm Mitchell again. We liked him last week and it worked out. I think the Jets get burned deep. So if someone's going to get open against them, it's not necessarily Edelman so much as it's going to be someone going down the field. So I think you can definitely consider Malcolm Mitchell again.
Yep.
And even if Hogan plays, I think you can consider Hogan in your tournament lineups as a pivot off of Edelman. Yeah. Anyone else got any other thoughts? I don't know. As much as you, I feel like you need exposure to this game. I just don't like this game, really.
I kind of like Matt Forte, man. No one's into Forte.
No.
Forte on DraftKings looks pretty good, man.
New England.
I mean, you look at the Jets. Oh man, the Jets always kind of hang around in these games at New England, and the Jets have been pounding the football, and they've been pounding the football against good teams against the run. I mean, they shredded Baltimore. They ran all over the Rams. They average 150 rushing yards since week 7 per game. It's the most in the NFL. I mean, Forte has 50% of the team touches in 5 games this year. It's trailing just Melvin Gordon, and the Patriots have been terrible against the run. The past 3 weeks, they're 30th in the league against the run. So, I mean, I think this is an opportunity where the Jets could really come out and try to, muck this game up, and it would be with Forte. And they've shown if they hang around in games, he's a guy they're willing to give 30 touches to. And I look at him as pricing on both sites, and I think I'm going to own some of them this week.
He has 80 rushing yards in each of his last 4 games. He has 5 touchdowns over that span. He has 4, 3, 2, and 3 targets. I just immediately dismissed him when I was writing up my notes.
Patriots, Jets. I
mean, who is Bill Belichick going to want the Patriots to beat them? With Matt Forte or with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So my take out their best player, and that's Matt Forte. And he's been bad. The Patriots have been bad against the pass and pretty okay against the run. Yeah.
They've been elite against the run. My concern is snap counts. Bilal Powell has played 45% and 53% over the last 2 weeks. I mean, the Patriots are like a top 5 run defense and like a bottom 5 pass defense. I don't know. I don't get excited against with Matt Forte when they're trailing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not
script
excited.
is a big concern.
I don't know. Although
I tried.
I've gotten Forte wrong like every week though, so I'm probably completely wrong.
It's cool. I tried.
I just fade it every week.
By the way, guys, we forgot to mention.
I do think the Patriots like rushing totals though I think are skewed for big picture though, and then like recency because they haven't been good lately.
Yeah, no, they're a bad defense, but they're only, and I've been saying this for like 12 weeks, Scott. They're only good against the run. Against the pass, they're like
Alan Branch is out too.
Bad.
And Alan Branch is out.
Yeah, I mean they are not a good defense at all.
I'm just gonna keep trying to push this through.
And you know the whole they're gonna scheme against Brandon Marshall or whatever. They're not scheming against anyone this year. They're just bad.
Tom Brady throws a touch. Patriots get the ball first. They score a touchdown. Jets get it. They punt it. Patriots score a touchdown. They're down 14. Who gets the ball more the rest of the game, Bilal Powell or Matt Forte?
Who knows? CJ Spiller.
The Patriots secondary.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think you can consider Patriots D, but I'm not like I'm less on them than I was Wednesday.
They're a premier like defensive plays this week. Like there's just no need.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, so let's talk Chiefs Broncos. This is like the least exciting game of the week. I don't know. I like Spencer Ware again, but you just can't trust Andy Reid. I don't like Tyreek Hill. I kind of like both defenses instead. I don't know. Where you guys at?
Marcus Peters should be back. Points per game to wide receivers who line up to their quarterback's left. It's where Demaryius Thomas spends the most of his time, about 44%. So I think he's kind of interesting, but I'm not really too on him. The only play I have written
as we lose Scott again.
Spencer Ware, 11 yards per game. Fuck! Denver's allowing the fourth most rushing yards per game and the second fewest passing yards per game. So I think Ware's going to be a good low-owned play.
That's about all I got. You like anybody else, Rich?
I like Demaryius this week. I'm probably higher on him than most. Maybe it's just the way the wide receiver position shapes up too that I'm drawn to him more than I would be. I mean, but yeah, Scott laid it out. Like we talk about it on our show a lot with Evan. Like we target like the opposite dude that plays the Chiefs, like that, the dude that run routes opposite of Marcus Peters. Like those guys have all like been really good every week. And Demaryius has 10 or more targets in 5 straight games. That's the longest streak in the league. He's crushed the Chiefs historically, and now I know that those were like good offenses that he was with. But yeah, he's in a good spot to still have a lot of volume. I mean, Devontae Booker's not really that good. They kind of can't run the ball very effectively outside of just volume by default of controlling games. I mean, on the left side of the field only, Michael Thomas had 8 for 90. Cooper had 6 for 85. Kelvin had 5 for 62. Allen Robinson had 4 for 52. Will Fuller had 3 for 51. I mean, they've allowed 5 touchdowns on the left side of the field. I mean, I kind of like a guy with double-digit targets in a favorable spot, just because I've been targeting that against that left side of the Chiefs defense all year.
He's a great tournament play that you're going to get low owned.
I get you there. I feel like his ceiling is so low with that offense. Like on DraftKings, I feel like you're hoping for a 3x as like almost like his ceiling. I mean, do you think he's going to score 2 touchdowns? That's kind of. I
actually like him more in cash than I do tournaments.
Oh man.
Because I think the floor is there, but like you said, I don't think that there's like a tilting ceiling.
Would you play him over Larry Fitzgerald? I guess he's a similar play to Larry Fitzgerald. I guess they're actually really close.
Yeah, I mean they're priced right next to each other. He's got I think a little bit I mean, I don't want to say it's a better matchup because we don't know what Trufont's going to do.
No, it is close. It is close. That makes sense.
But it is a good spot for Demaryius, whereas like Fitz is kind of unknown, and Fitz has kind of been a floor play himself. And you got a home favorite. Denver at home has been a really good team. So I like the spot for Demaryius a little more, and like Fitz just kind of been like kind of eh. But I don't know. I'm actually the opposite. I like him more in cash than I do tournaments.
No, now that I'm looking at it, I mean, you're looking at a similar target projection to Larry Fitzgerald, a similar spot to where we hope they're getting the better matchup. And yeah, I mean, it's really close. I probably wouldn't play him in tournaments though.
In tournaments, I would just play Cooks right under him.
Yeah,
I mean, right under him, you just play Cooks and play for the ceiling. But I actually think Demaryius has an all right floor for cash games in full PPR.
Oh, I hate you for this. Probably not.
I like it, man. I like it. It's a good call. Low owns in tournaments and a cash game floor. I think that's solid.
Yeah, no, I agree. I probably play neither of them, but they're definitely in play. They're definitely there. No, I'm just like staring at it and like he is.
Yeah,
41 targets.
Well, I mean, it's
over 4 weeks. So yeah, it's definitely there. It feels so good.
All right, well, I couldn't talk you into Forte, but I got you, Demaryius.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
One thing I want to mention that we forgot to talk about was Mark Ingram's questionable. If he doesn't play, I think Tim Hightower is a must play.
Definitely up there. Definitely a way high play. Yeah. I agree. I thought we mentioned that. Did I not mention that?
Did we? I don't know.
No.
Sorry.
I don't know. I might not have. All right, but no,
we kind of just skimmed past that one.
Yeah, we ran way over. We're not going to talk about the Eagles-Packers game just because we don't really have time. But
play J-Mat. It's a J-Mat week. No tilt. No tilt is like a J-Mat tilt.
Yes, J-Mat's a great play though. I agree. Any other?
I like Cobb and Jordy.
Oh my God! Here we go.
All right, well, let's not talk about it. Pretend I said nothing.
Any other plays you guys want to throw in? No. If not, let everyone got a favorite kicker.
Ugh.
I like Franks or Carpenter. Not on my thing.
Buffalo kicker, Miami kicker, and is that who you just said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you just targeting spreads? Because that's what I do every week.
Well, yeah. I mean, home team totals against teams that, and you look at the 49ers and the Jags, they're allowing a lot of field goal attempts per game. So that's basically it. And they're cheap. They're mins. They're min guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm actually with you guys. Anybody else? So yeah. All right. We are good on kickers. All right. So all right. So thanks
shout out Quincy and shout out Pano's drinking game.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Thanks for joining us, guys. Good luck.